Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beers and Boost. I'm Barry.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are without Zach. Yeah, Zach is out. He had a whole bunch of work stuff that popped up on him, so it's just us today. He'll be back for beers, and we'll get you going there. But Nathan, you want to take us off with some recalls?
Yeah, sure. Ford is recalling a little over 25,000 of the 2020 Expeditions and Lincoln Navigators for a faulty pre-collision assist feature system. Which, that's a sentence we hear all the time. The faulty system may not warn you of an incoming collision, which, frankly, being an old school driver, your eyes should warn you of a, incoming collision.
Yeah.
Ford has identified the incorrect software programming and will run an update on the body control module, anti-lock braking system, and instrument panel cluster, and the headlamp control modules. The tire pressure system will be reset as well.
That's kind of odd to me that all of these things are within the pre-collision assist feature. Like, your entire front end's getting updated.
Yeah. The tire pressure system is the one that I'm like, you mean the air?
Yeah.
Like, what?
The air in my tires is wrong. I'm going to crash.
We still manually air up our tires. So, like, what? Just like, this won't show that you're under inflated, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. That's going to be an interesting one. So.
But it should be noted, if you have an incoming collision, there might be a fire.
Might be.
So,
take a shot.
Yeah, at least half a shot. Toyota is recalling a little under 23,000 of the 2016 to 2018 Land Cruisers for a faulty diesel particulate filter. Yeah,
all right,
we all have those.
Yep.
That could become clogged when driving in heavy vegetation.
Are they driving through Two-Hearted?
They are. They are. They are driving through an unfiltered wheat beer.
Yep.
If not removed, the high temperatures caught up in the exhaust could lead to combustion and fire.
Another shot.
Finish that shot at the very least. Finish the other one at the very least. Looks like this recall is only affecting people who take their Land Cruiser off-road in Australia. A lot of off-road in Australia. Mostly off-road in Australia. No word yet for Toyota if the U.S. Land Cruisers have the same part, but they will update as needed.
All right, then. So, yeah. Land Rovers and SUVs from Ford and Lincoln getting recalled. That already is going to be the theme to the episode. Just to let you know, a little foreshadowing. But first, let's talk about Tesla. Tesla has decided, they've decided to open their next facility in Austin, Texas. Originally, it was down to Tulsa or Austin. Tulsa being only like a 2-hour drive from here. Kind of interesting that Tesla Gigafactory would have been, in 2 hours from Northwest Arkansas, but it's moving to Austin, which kind of is not surprising in that Austin and Houston have both had economic business booms in the past 5 or 6 years. And both of those cities are, not to bring politics into it, but they're very liberal as far as Texas is concerned. So I'm not saying that that's the reason, but that there has definitely been a population growth partly in relation to that, or they've coincided together, kind of a thing. Not really sure.
I do think that Elon, one of the smarter things that he's done is he's sought out populations where he can build his cars. He sought out populations where the surrounding area will support the fact that he's making electric cars, that he's being aware of climate change, kind of being one of the forefront innovators in that area. But he also wants to make sure that he's in an area that is super conservative in terms of greater politics that will give him tax advantages.
Absolutely.
So,
which
I'm actually surprised he isn't in Miami.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. Although, well, I don't know if you want to be in Miami if you understand climate change, because Miami might not be here in 10 years. So
that's true as well.
Yeah.
That's true as well. Yeah.
The interesting fact of this, though, is old Muskie has been super unhappy with California because they won't let him go back to work or reopen his factories like he wants because they're still in a slight shutdown state. So he had already threatened to move to Austin or Houston for his production, which I think is probably the reason why, according to the news we found for this, is he wants to have it open and the first car off the line by the end of 2020. Now, it's already almost the end of May. That means he has 6 months to build and run and stock an entire factory. That's an astronomical thing to ask, not even in the light of COVID.
Yeah, so just this week he tweeted, we are going to be making cars here in California. He goes, I will be at the factory if anyone gets arrested for violating any sort of stay-at-home laws or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Arrest me.
Yeah.
Which, man, I'm just, you know what? I'm not going to take a side on that one.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it.
Just going to let all of them be them. You do you there, buddy. So, let's see here. Looks like there's another death in the sedan family. The Acura RLX is now officially been killed off. V6, 3 electric motor equaling 377 horsepower sedan is going to no longer be around. Not surprising, though, as apparently Acura only sold 1,000 of them over the past year. That's an extremely small number.
Yeah, I have to say, maybe of all the car lineups, I just don't know Acura's.
Yeah. The RLX took the place of the RL, which took the place of the Legend. And then they had the RS, or the RX, for a long time, which was their 2-door coupe, which was originally the Integra. But past that, it's...
I've always been confused because I feel like you can buy the equivalent Honda maxed out, like luxuried out, for cheaper than the Acura. That's the same thing.
Yeah. It's not like how Toyota does Lexus, where they're not the same cars. They are completely a different offshoot. They're using Toyota parts and stuff, but they're not like an LS is not the same as a Camry, but they are both sedans. If you get the sedan version, so the Acura one being like they're the exact car is kind of always odd.
And some of them are literally just different skins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and maybe a transmission upgrade. It's a little weird.
Yeah, which it's kind of funny that we're seeing the death of a sedan, and we're talking about how Acura and Honda are so similar, but yet Nissan is the one that's hurting, even though the Infinitis and the Nissan line are not the same.
I have to compliment you on your segue.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
But Nissan, as we talked about last week, they were seeing a glimmer of hope, just a little light of at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing, with their improved sales in China over the month, to then come announce that they've got to cut $2.8 billion by the end of the month, which has led them to kill off the Datsun line in their Asian markets. So, again, no more Datsun. And then also they came out and said because we're going to be moving our focus heavily towards the China market, the Japan market, and the American market, we're going to ask Renault to really take the ball and run with it in our European market. Well, Renault comes out and says, well, we need to cut $2.2 billion by the end of the month, and we're killing off our minivan, the Espace. So
the Espace is legendary if you're a Top Gear fan.
Yes. It was the six roll down window all the way back, and that was an interesting van. Or what they did with it was really interesting.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny that it's not looking good if you're going. We need to cut $2.8 billion, and then those people over there that are our sisters, we need you to really take hold of something, and then they go, well, we got to cut 2.2 billion. I don't know what you want from us, buddy. So,
I have a weird zag when everyone is zigging.
okay.
I think there's one person that can really solve this problem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
His name is Carlos Ghosn.
Oh,
Let me tell you what.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he can basically just put the final nail in the coffin.
He can just end it.
Yeah. He can come back in and be like, you know what? Just pay me another $5 billion. I know you don't have it. And then we'll just move on.
Yeah.
And we'll just have Toyota and Honda and Mazda in Subaru.
And I'll have enough money to pay for my legal battles.
Yeah. I'm back to Lebanon.
That's a good idea. So another car company that's really struggling is Aston Martin. Aston Martin has sold a total of 587 vehicles over the past year, or so far this year, which is exactly half of what they sold through this time last year. Now, granted, there's a pandemic going on and things like that, but it's not just that they've sold less, it's that they've also sold less, and the average vehicle is selling for $50,000 less than what it did last year. So Aston Martin has made, in essence, no money. Especially they've not made any money since our new CEO took over a couple months ago, and he gave them $147 million or something like that to keep going. So, yeah. Aston Martin's not looking too good. It does lead me to believe, though, that their idea for an SUV is not going to get put to the back burner like we thought. That it's probably going to be coming out sooner than later.
You know, it's funny. We complain about car companies that we love that make great cars, specifically cars, sports cars, sedans, that kind of thing, reverting SUV model. But we always come back to the fact that SUVs sell. Mm-hmm. And I will say this, being a fan of cars, being a fan of just a fan of the minutia of different James Bond films, being a fan of like different things. Yeah. Like Aston is important. Aston is important to car history. Aston is important to just like what we want to see out of cars, which is the romantic side. Mm-hmm. The romantic side of like, man, look at that car. If it would be a dream to drive it.
Absolutely.
And if they need to stay afloat I'll be honest, like we've got our DB ever since the DB4 that was in Goldfinger. Like Aston has been the preeminent sports car. Like that's the dream for a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not supercar. They've made plenty of supercars, but their supercars haven't lined up with what the Italians have done or anything like that.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, if they need to literally just to stay afloat, so then later on they can make some sort of new DB 12, 13, 14, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. If they need to just make SUVs and even maybe make them cheaper and price them at a point where they can actually just sell them to stay around, they are our romantic side. They're the poetry of cars. I'm okay with them just making SUVs. I'm okay with them saying like, hey, we need to throw all our eggs in this basket right now so we can actually pay for something later. Mm-hmm. And it's no surprise that they're selling less cars. I mean, less cars are being sold in general.
Absolutely.
And when you have a car that's rarely sold, I mean, you're 1,200 cars being sold in the first 5 months of the year on a normal basis, which is nothing compared to other places when you're selling F-150s 6 times an hour.
Yeah.
I think, if anything, I'm almost rooting for Aston to go like, hey, we're going to do SUVs the rest of the year, see where that puts us, and then we're going to come out with a new DB13 DBS.
Well, to kind of go along with that, hopefully they will, but as of right now, it looks like they're putting all their eggs into the DB, what they're calling the DBX basket. So I assume it would be a DB10, or did they already have the DB11? So I don't know.
See, they've had the DB11. That was the concept car that was in Spectre, the latest James Bond film. So I think the next one would be DB12.
Okay, so hopefully they do call it the 12. I don't know if they're going to keep it with the DBX, but they...
See, I thought the DBX was the SUV.
Maybe it is. I should look that up. Aston DBX. It is. Okay, you are correct.
Yeah,
so yeah,
it is.
We're on the same page here. I just didn't realize that the DBX was that. So yeah, no, they said they had a ton of pre-orders already for it, and that it is on pace to come out this year and get delivered. So hopefully this, like you said, will keep them afloat. So
it's like a super bougie Porsche Cayenne.
Yeah. Let's see here. Specs on a DBX. Watch it be 650 horsepower. $200,000. 542 horsepower from a 32 valve dual overhead cam V8 and 516 foot-pounds of torque with a 9-speed automatic transmission. So yeah, your typical high-end, high horsepower SUV. So
yeah,
it'll sell.
I'm surprised it's not electric, to be honest.
Well, that'll definitely sell. People will love that. But let's talk about another SUV that will definitely sell. Kind of interesting. We got an announcement that we will for sure see the BMW Alpine XB7 later this week. This is a 600 plus horsepower SUV with a 4.4 liter V8. The regular base edition V8s start at $92,000. So I can only assume that the XB7s are going to cost probably $120,000 plus. But we'll find out later this week. Another massively popular SUV. I don't know how people are affording these, but go ahead. Another one that's doing really well. We got news that the Genesis GV80, another 400 horsepower luxury SUV, they've already sold 10,000 pre-orders for it. So I guess good job high-end day Genesis. I like to see you guys sell more cars. It's just, this shows you how popular SUVs are. I mean, we're talking about a really nice Acura RLX is like $37,000, $40,000 for a good one. It's half the price of a Genesis GV80. Same horsepower. The only difference is a little bit taller. Like, it's got the same seating area. They're both luxury vehicles, but you're paying double the money for it to be an SUV, and people are buying it out the ass.
Yeah, I think this just came to me, but should we start looking for a different name for SUVs?
Car.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I mean, sport utility vehicle, that meant something when they first came out, which was like, it's kind of like your sedan, but you can actually go off-road. It's a higher ride height. It's got four-wheel drive. It's got all the amenities and stuff like this. And some of these just don't have that.
Yeah.
Some of these are literally, all they are is they ride higher. And I just don't know if we should actually, marketing-wise for cars, we're never going to change that. But I think we should like actually come up with a different term for just an elevated sedan. You know, because some of these, I would actually say maybe more are produced that aren't four-wheel drive, that aren't, you know, ready for any sort of off-roading than what was originally conceived. I mean, we talked last episode, my family, we bought a Ford Expedition when it first came out in 97. And even though it was ritzy, it was the Eddie Bauer edition. I don't know how my parents afforded it. My parents are not in high price jobs at all. But it had a four-wheel drive low function. It was, at the time, really high riding because it had 18-inch wheels, which were gigantic in 1997.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't understand, and we literally did off-roading in that car. We would go to like state parks and go through fields and hit trailheads that you had to go through fields to hit trailheads and that kind of thing. But now, now that even, especially since luxury car production companies have figured out like SUVs sell, what is an SUV other than you have to jump up higher? Sorry, just one second.
Yeah.
What? No. Like what are SUVs if not just I ride higher so I can maneuver traffic better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just gonna start calling them high risers. I don't know, water treaders. No, because they don't really tread water. I don't know. It's a good existential and also real world question there. What is an SUV?
I just think based on what the original concept was, which was you can take your family still and you don't have to have a Jeep or a pickup or a, you know, like crazy off-road vehicle. You can have a comfortable existence while going off-road, while adventuring. I would say probably like 85% of SUVs aren't adventured within. Like they don't go on adventures. And so that kind of defeats the purpose of the name sport utility vehicle.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely.
Anyway, so that was my TED Talk for this week.
Thanks for coming on. We enjoyed it. But let's keep it going in the SUV talk and kind of move over a little bit. We'll talk about crossovers now, or as what Ford likes to call them, Mustangs. The Mustang Mach-E. Apparently, their engineers don't know what they're doing, or maybe they do know what they're doing. It originally was announced that the Mach-E on fast charging capabilities would get about 47 miles in a 10-minute charge. After some extraneous testings, they found out that they would actually get 61 miles out of a 10-minute charge. Now, it does not really work in the real-world environment, as your battery has to be at 1% and connected to a fast-charging device with the high-capacity battery version. The real-world answer to all of this is, right now, after testing, it looks like 10% to 80% charge, so 10% capacity to 80% capacity, takes about 45 minutes on a fast-charging device. So, kind of standard.
Which is standard. Also, still very good. I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. It's no Porsche, but...
I actually wonder if there's a problem with how fast these things charge.
And how much it's going to kill your battery?
Yeah, because if you arrive at work and you're like, or maybe you arrive at work, then you go to lunch, then you come back from lunch, and you're like, if your work has fast charging stations or even just regular charging stations, you're like, I'm going to throw this on the charging station, I'm going to go into work. We know multiple businesses in the Northwest Arkansas area that are providing these charging stations to their employees. Then do you have to set like an alarm?
Yeah,
and
to remember.
Like, hey, in an hour, I got to go out and take this off the charging station, or it's going to ruin my battery later.
Yeah. But also, I mean, you're putting in all of these voltages into your battery at such a high rate. Like, I mean, I just don't know if I trust the longevity of these batteries. Are they going to be quality charging batteries 10 years from now? I mean, you think about laptops and phones. Like, you have a phone for 3 years and you charge it every other day or every day. By the time you get to the third year, it's losing its battery. It's losing its charge in half a day on the same stuff you've been doing. Or just like a laptop, you have to replace the battery on a laptop every 4 or 5 years. So who's to say that a car is going to have, not saying that they won't have better batteries, but who's to say that those batteries are going to last 10 years?
Now, I will say, manufacturers have thought of this, at least on the computer side of things, because I have a computer that depending on how you're planning on using it, I have a laptop. My main computer, the one that I'm looking at you on now, and it actually has a power setting that says, hey, are you going to be just keeping this plugged in all the time? And to be honest, yeah, I do. Rather, unless I'm just moving from room to room or that kind of thing, like I always just have it plugged in. And if I do, it never lets the battery be charged more than 80%.
Nice. So it just maybe skips it and just goes straight to the motherboard. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a really cool feature.
So people have thought of this. So hopefully car manufacturers have thought of this. And if not, we know they listen to us. They steal our ideas all the time.
Absolutely.
Do this. And that way you can save batteries for your owners.
Yeah. Or they probably won't do that, so that way they got to buy a new one every 5 years.
Yeah, I can't say that computer companies have the best sales model.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the fact that they're like, hey, like when I went into battery settings one time, when I first started the computer, when I brought it up for the first time, it said like, hey, what are you planning on doing power-wise? Are you planning on just keeping it off the charger until you need more? Or are you going to just be like, is it at a desk? Which, to be honest, more often than not, it is. I was like, no, it's going to be charged in. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to set it to where it never charges more than 80%. And it basically ignores the charge past that point.
To extend your battery life, which is a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah.
Well, something that wasn't a great idea, Georgia allowing their teens to get their driving license without ever taking a test. Well, I got some bad news for you, Georgians. You're going to have to take that test. It may not be today. May not be next week, but by September 30th, if you want to keep your license, you got to go get your road test. So those 7 or 17,000 kids that ended up getting their licenses, you got to go take your test.
Yeah, and based on what's happening in Georgia, they might extend that period because, with them opening everything up a little faster than everyone else, like there's been some serious ramifications in terms of just the spread of COVID and everything like that. So, but all right. Although I will say we abruptly switched to maybe the fact that on our podcast, at least, maybe people just don't need to take the test.
Yeah.
Like,
with how there's absolutely no real weight to the test. It's just like you do one or two things and you're good.
I think it's because there's no consistency between states.
Okay. Yeah.
There's some states that they just really want, or there's some states where I'll tell you when I was at the end of the Oklahoma Panhandle, everyone had been driving since they were like 10 because they were driving their farm trucks. They were driving their parents' farm trucks to help out with the farm.
Absolutely.
Or the ranch.
Yeah.
And people were like, you should have been driving for like 5 years.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of states previously used to allow you to get your permit at like 13 because you had to drive a tractor or a farm vehicle. So it's crazy how in just 20 years the country has become so much less rural while also staying very rural. Like, we haven't really changed in a geographic base, or people haven't really necessarily moved out of farms, but how so many laws were written around farms, or life was written around farms, and how quickly that kind of changed. So,
yeah, it's been an interesting dichotomy of our national identity has kind of moved back into the urban area. After it had been there for a while in the early 19th or 20th century, and then had spread out, specifically in the 80s when we really romanticized the middle America farm culture. And then you realize by 2010, most of that middle America had been taken over by corporations. And so it moves back into the populace, which is mainly in the cities. That is in no way in relation to what we talk about on this podcast, but it's a true thing about America right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we have offshot a lot into is politics and the way that the government is still run and the things have power in relation to the state, but the state doesn't have the population to retain said power. Like California, it has enough people and size in it that it should be its own governing body. Like California should have, if there's 10 voices in government, like just as an example, California and Texas should each have 4 voices. And then New York should have 3, and then every other state basically has 1 with the amount of population. If you're going to go off the voice of the people kind of an aspect to it. And it's just kind of funny that we have gotten so back into urbanization, but yet we still rely on so many other things that have a rural aspect to it and a lower density. The lower dense population still has such a huge voice. It's kind of funny. So,
well, and this is the utmost first world problem, but we live in an area very fine in terms of just like if you drive around Fayetteville, Arkansas, for those of you that aren't listening in our area, or for those that are, you can relate to this. The fact that if you drive around Northwest Arkansas, there's still a lot of natural beauty. There's a lot of hills, there's a lot of trees, but we have the unique situation where we are kind of a countrified area that has your Whole Foods, that has your fresh market, that has everything that the rural areas have. And so it's a unique, weird situation where we have conveniences that a lot of places. I was just on, I think we've talked about this maybe before, but I was on Twitter the other day and someone was just like, hey, I love that you say that this online recipe for whatever it is easy, but hey, all I have is Dollar General for groceries, and they don't even have whole milk. Like,
yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, that's true. People still do live in the country, and they don't have even a Walmart or something to. They have their local grocery store that maybe has 2 types of tomato sauce, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a topic for a different day, but I've said it for years that the United States shouldn't be the United States. It should be 4 or 5 different countries. There's just, it's too big and too spread out for it to actually be its own thing. I mean, the United States is the size of Europe.
Well, I'll drop my personal kind of thought here, and we do not have to discuss it because it's stupid and we don't have to discuss it. But like, we shouldn't even, with the advent of the internet and the fact that every commerce is basically international at this point, like we still have very segmented countries in the world, still kind of cracks me up. Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we don't have some sort of gigantic one economy.
Yeah.
Is like just it blows my mind.
It's absolutely hilarious that you bring that up, because that's exactly what Rachel and I were talking about last night with the UN, like how the UN is kind of like they don't really exist kind of a thing. And it's like, well, what's the point of even having it if it has no power or no jurisdiction over how things are happening in every country? Then what are you doing? You're just sitting there? Like, let's not go off into a politics, like, or a world organization entity. Let's keep it somewhat cars related.
This is a peek into the podcast that you and I have threatened to make multiple times.
Yeah. The theory of the world.
Yeah. No, we could definitely do some deep dive. We could read some Noam Chomsky. We could really, But no, in terms of cars, it makes sense with Georgia. Coming back to what we were talking about, it makes sense with Georgia being like, hey, for the moment, just because we can't do the tests and you're of age, let's do this. But at the same time, if anything, the fact that you've been driving for like 4 months, you should be able to come in and just be like, oh, I got this. Let's ace this test. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully it goes well for those guys. That's actually the last thing I had on the news area. Did you have anything else to add to that? Or
I really didn't. I had quite a busy week, and I didn't really catch up on any differing car news. Unfortunately, Zach wasn't able to join us for this episode today. I had quite the stump Zach, which I think he'll probably get in like the first 3 details of whatever car I have.
But he might. It's a really good one
next time.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
It is a really good one. I'm really fond of the car.
Yeah,
that I chose. So,
well, hopefully that doesn't give him any hints, because he'll watch this later on.
Oh yeah, but I like a lot of different cars.
True.
So, but no Nissans, because fuck that guy.
Yeah, I know, right? So, Nissan. Boo. Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good stopping point. Let us know on Twitter @BeersandBoost, or Instagram @BeersandBoostPod, or YouTube in the comments section if you want Nathan and I to do the theory of the world, because we could just bullshit about the world for hours, probably.
The biggest thing, if we ever did that podcast, would be finding off like cutoff points.
Yeah,
finding cutoff points.
This podcast has been going for 3 hours today. We're done.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? So we've been going 5 hours. I guess we stop.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Have a great midweek.